And welcome on in, everybody. Another edition here of Thursday Night Live presented by Auburn University Club. My name is Nathan King, joined here with Jason Caldwell, as always, here on Thursday evening. Another remote edition of the show because we are recording this early because as you watch this live right now, me and Jason will be out at tip-off at Toomer's there at Toomer's Corner. And I imagine a lot of you will be doing the same or watching, by the way, on ESPN Plus. If you have an ESPN Plus subscription at 6:30 Central Time, you can watch that. But we are here, obviously, as we are every week, to preview Auburn's game on Saturday. They travel to Missouri this weekend. We'll obviously talk a little bit of Auburn basketball as well. As we did last week, we'll try to do this for you guys as often as we can. We had that Butch Thompson interview. Eugene Asante, Auburn's senior linebacker, had a great interview this week on Tuesday. So we wanted to play that here at the beginning before we get into the show.
How's the bye week for you guys to kind of take a deep breath and a reset?
The bye week is good. I think sometimes you need, as football players, you need time to refocus and rededicate yourself to your craft and everything you're doing. I think the bye week was good in terms of just trying to, refocus ourselves on everything we need to do and just be able to understand that we still have goals we want to accomplish with this team. Obviously, we had goals at the beginning of the season and just readjusting and pivoting our goals and understanding that we can finish the season strong.
I mean, 2-4 is not where you thought you would be, but when you go back and watch it in a bye week and watch those things, does it look like a 2-4 team to you?
No, it doesn't. That's what hurts probably the most, and I know it hurts the fans that the results aren't there. But I do believe in the leadership of this team. I do believe in Coach Freeze and his vision. And I understand that with somebody like that at the helm of it, good things can come out of it. And the biggest thing is just us as players taking accountability for our mistakes. I think it's in this profession, I'm not gonna lie to you, I think it's so easy to deflect and, man, the coach is wrong, the coach is wrong, the coach is this. But it's like if I miss a tackle in the A gap, it's on me. They put me in that position, and it's really, as a player, I've done trying to do a good job of just look at my mistakes and be super critical of myself, because I understand as a player, if you have that critique of yourself, it's going to elevate your game and just others around you. So I'm trying to do a good job of that and trying to bring the guys along in that realm.
Eugene, has it been difficult at all to keep everybody together, as your teammates and the players?
At times, truthfully, yeah, at times I think so. But I think now we're doing a really good job of just understanding that our mistakes are self-inflicted. Not trying to point the finger. It's like I said, it's very easy to say, do the blame game within ourselves too. It's like, especially when the results aren't there. This guy's not playing good. This guy's this guy's that, and instead of looking inward and be like, man, I messed up in this, I messed up in that. So if we have that mindset that we're going to look inward and try to evaluate our mistakes, I think that makes us a way better team.
How quickly do you think it can flip? A couple of plays here or there?
Yeah, I think it can flip really quick. We talked about in our defensive meeting, don't let us get one. Just don't let us get one victory. So it's like, I really do believe once you get one and that momentum and you understand, you get back in the swing of things, you're like, man, that confidence really does truly come from winning and just having good tape and going out there and playing well. So I do believe we get one and just that'll build the momentum in this team. It'll build a spark within this team that this team really does need at this moment.
What's going to be important to you guys defensively going up against such talented skill players from Missouri?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. They have a complete offense. They have a really good offense. And Brady Cook is at the helm of that. He's their quarterback. Certainly somebody that's super dynamic in terms of getting the ball to his playmakers. And then on top of that, he has the capability of running. So just being able to limit him in any way possible, having tight coverage in the back end, and then on third down, getting in situations where we can go pressure the quarterback and get him off the spot to limit him. And we understand what Luther Burton is. He's a top draft pick, and we understand what he brings to the game as a dynamic playmaker. So just being, challenging the corners all week, understanding that, this is an elite competition, just going against him. So, as players, we believe in ourselves so much, and we believe in our abilities, and we want to go display that against elite competition. So I'm challenging the corners and everybody that's going to be on him to go out there and play your game and show who you are, So that's another great person that we got to stop, a dynamic person we have to stop. They got great running backs. The running back core is really good. All three of them are really good. So that's my job, my responsibility to go shut those guys down, and I'm preparing and ready to go do that.
How's Jay Crawford doing? He's got a pretty big matchup coming.
Oh, Jay Crawford?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of throwing Jay Crawford in the fire, but we always emphasize to him, you're not a freshman no more, and like, bro, you're built for it, Certainly somebody that came into college ready to play, and he doesn't carry himself as a freshman. So I'm excited to see how he does this week in practice, and just go out there, and I know he's gonna have a great game.
How wild is it to see? I mean, you got Malik, Riddick,
Yeah.
Crawford,
Yeah.
Kinsley thrown in there, Caleb Harris. I mean, there's a bunch of true freshmen. I mean, is it crazy to look around that room and see that many young guys?
Yeah, it's like, it just really shows you how bright the future is, and how talented those young guys are. And they're great players now, and I understand that they're even going to be greater in the future, but their preparation and everything is key. Like, you can't, as a freshman, I'll be honest with you, myself as a freshman, I wouldn't be able to go out there and do that. But they prepare, they do everything. They come to meetings early, like they're taking detailed notes. So Coach Durkin has that trust in them, belief in them that they can go out there and execute, and they've shown it. So we're going to lean on those guys, and we'll continue to lean on them throughout the rest of the season.
How valuable is a bye week for a guy like that when you get to take a deep breath and as a true freshman, you go, okay, now I've seen it.
Yeah. I think it allows them to refocus and understand. Especially, a lot of them are coming from high school where they're not accustomed to losing football games. So understanding that everything is all in our control. We play Missouri, but honestly, it's Auburn versus Auburn. Like every day in practice, it's on us to go out there, and the only person we're going against is the people in the mirror. We're going against ourselves. So I view it that way, and I'm just trying to get them to view it that way. And I think once we do that, we're going to be hard to stop.
All right, so Auburn linebacker Eugene Asante. Jason, I know you suggested put that video in there, and I can see why. Sort of a widespread interview with a guy who's seen a lot of ball. Not only at Auburn, but in his college football career. And what was interesting to me was talking about the mindset of this team. You hear people say that cliche a lot. You're playing yourself. Auburn versus Auburn, but for this team right now at this juncture, with the way the season has gone, it makes a lot of sense because they're still, as you wrote about this week, they feel like they are close to that breakthrough win. And a lot of their shortcomings in that department have been because of mistakes they have made, maybe not so much of what other teams have done.
Yeah, no, you look at it, and probably the big question you get, you're 6 weeks in, you're at a bye week, and people are like, what's the mindset of this team? And I think you get it from Eugene, but we talked to a bunch of guys this week, whether it's Rivaldo, talked to him. I mean, Oscar Chapman, the punter, he's like, hey, I'm on the sidelines. I don't know offensive and defensive plays. He said, but I know what I see. And he said, I see a team that's pretty close. And so I think you look at this team, and I think they feel like, hey, we're right there. And we've talked about that all year. 2-4 record doesn't tell the entire story. This is not 2012 where you're just getting blitzed and you have no chance to win games, and you're out there and it's 50-0 at halftime. That's not what's happening with this team. It's this close. And so, I kind of liken it back to, I don't watch a ton of NFL football, but I watched a little bit of the Jets and Bills the other night. And when the play was on the line and when play had to be made, the Bills made all the plays. The Jets made none of them. I think it does. It happens just that quickly. Can you find a way to make a play? And once you do, you go, okay, we can do this. Can you do that Saturday? That's going to be a challenge. Missouri doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Only have one turnover, I believe. They force some, not a ton, but they don't turn the ball over one time. This Auburn defense has not forced a bunch of turnovers. And I think you look and just 2 weeks shows you how the importance of that. Auburn doesn't turn the ball. I mean, Georgia doesn't turn the ball over against Auburn. Last week they turned it over 3 times and give Mississippi State's offense more opportunities on the field, and it has an impact in the game. And so I start looking at things early into this one, and I see an Auburn team that needs something positive to happen. Last week, 2 weeks ago against Georgia, you go out and looks like you're going to get a 3 and out, and you get caught in a line change and let Georgia extend a drive, and they go down and score a touchdown. And the little things like that. Can you find something that goes your way early that may be really important on the road? 11 a.m. Can you keep that crowd as a breakfast crowd, as we've seen happen at Auburn many times before?
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Freeze said it on Tiger Talk this week. They asked him, what time would you prefer in terms of a road kickoff? And he said, it's not even close. Give him an 11 a.m. all day. And
Right.
most coaches would tell you that because you have less of an opportunity to stir and wait and think.
Yeah, mimosas don't
business trip like.
Mimosas don't really drive a crowd as much as maybe the whiskey does later in the day. It's harder to get going at 11 a.m.
Yeah, and he said, even for home games, sometimes he said, the night games are good for fans and it gives you a great environment, but sometimes it's good to just come in there and know what you need to do. Jason, let's talk about this Missouri team before we'll touch on Auburn and kind of their post-bye week stuff after this. But a team that, despite a 5-1 record, has not, when you watch their product on the field, has not lived up to preseason expectations. As a team with one of the lighter schedules in the SEC. Relative, it's still
Correct.
tough, but relative to the rest of the league. They had, double-digit wins, potential college football playoff, hopes this season. It's all still on the table. You're 5-1 at midseason. It absolutely is all still on the table. Got a couple tough games coming up down the stretch, but their best win of the year, Jason, is probably against Vanderbilt at home in overtime. You needed
missed a field goal that would have won the game. Yes,
you needed a close game, to beat Boston College at your place, and then I don't think they're as bad as the Texas A&M game showed. I think Hugh Freeze did a good job of explaining and talking about how road games can get away from you, and all of a sudden you're kind of spiraling. But I don't think, Jason, I think it makes sense Missouri is favored, and I personally pick Missouri to win this game, but I don't think Auburn is super overmatched on Saturday when they go on this game.
No, I don't know that Auburn's overmatched. I mean, Auburn wasn't overmatched in Athens. You make a couple of those plays and you're right there. Now, I think Georgia's a more talented team than Missouri, so you don't have to play perfect. You probably would have needed to play pretty close to perfect and get a couple of turnovers in Athens to win it. But you gave yourself an opportunity there. I don't think Missouri's as talented. Now, they've got a few players who are as talented as anybody Auburn will see this year, Luther Burden being the top of that list at wide receiver. Theo Weiss is a former 5-star Oklahoma signee that's a legit – they got 2 legit NFL wide receivers outside. And so you think about that matchup for Auburn's young corners, and can Auburn pressure the quarterback? They couldn't do it against Georgia. Can you get some pressure on Brady Cook? Because if not, he doesn't make many mistakes. But you're right. I think Missouri's somewhere in between. They're not 41-10 bad, but they're probably not top 10 good. You look and numbers can be very deceiving, even 6 games into a season. And the thing that's probably the most deceiving number about Missouri is you look at them and you go, they're 12 in total defense and 12 in scoring defense. You go, man, that's a pretty good group. And then you look at it and you go, well, they shut out Murray State, they shut out Buffalo and allowed 3 to UMass, 21 to Boston College, 27 to Vandy, and 41 to Texas A&M. So you go probably somewhere in between those numbers a little bit. But yeah, they have they've been good at home, and that's the thing. They haven't blown out a ton of folks at home, but they won close games over and over again at home. Other than Georgia a couple of years ago, where they had a chance to beat them, they've won these close games. They beat, was it Kansas State early last year, somebody like that, close games. And so they're gritty, and Brady Cook is kind of the lead guy at being that gritty, tough guy at quarterback that doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody who did a podcast with somebody from Missouri yesterday, and the big thing for them so far this season is that the Brady Cook experience has been a lot more inconsistent than it was last year. This podcaster in particular said that he resembles a lot more of what they saw in 2022 than what they saw in 2023. And obviously we got a little taste of that when Auburn played Missouri that season. And so, ESPN's Bill Connolly put out a chart yesterday that was QBR from every SEC quarterback in only league games, SEC versus SEC. Peyton Thorne is higher on that than both Brady Cook and Nico Iamaleava. And so you mentioned the receiving talent that they have with Theo Weiss and Luther Burden. That's going to be a big challenge. I do think Auburn's defensive front is a huge key in this game, because when Brady Cook has been, pressured a little bit this season, when things haven't gone as planned, it's just not been nearly as dynamic as it was last year when they went out and won 11 games.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too has been, when you look at it, the running game, where you start talking about, this group, and you go, man, last year you have, the breakout performer of all breakout performers at running back from Missouri, and how different that made that offense. They're still running the ball well, but you look and you go like 43 carries against Boston College and 176 yards, but 43 carries that's not great number. Now Vandy, they ran the ball really well, 40 for 216, but Texas A&M 30 for 68 yards. So they've piled up some yards. UMass, they had 231, 255 against Buffalo, and so you look at it and go, like any game, can you put the ball in Brady Cook's hands? And for Auburn, can you do it in third and long, third and medium, third and long? That was the issue against Georgia. That was a big deal, is Georgia had second and third and short all day long. And when you do that, you open up an entire playbook. We saw Georgia throw a deep ball on 3rd and 1 because they knew, like, hey, we'll come back and go for it on 4th down. Can you stop the run? They've got a kind of group of backs. Their top back is a transfer, 5'8", 180 or so, not the biggest guy, Nate Noel, 471 yards, couple of touchdowns, but averages 6 yards a carry. Marcus Carroll's a bigger back from Georgia State, 281 yards. And then Brady Cook's their third leading rusher with 121 yards. Now, like I said, they're averaging 187 or so yards a game, and they have 15 rushing touchdowns. So they do like to run it in, but I do think it still comes down to, can Auburn's defensive front, can they force you into third and longs? Then can you turn Jalen McLeod loose as a pass rusher again in a third and long situation? Obviously, Keldrick Falk, but I wonder if we see a little bit different style, more traditional 4-man front out of Auburn instead of the 3-man front that we've been seeing a little bit more of. Maybe some alternative things that we haven't seen much since maybe early in the year.
Yeah, and Eugene Asante talked about it a little bit there. I mean, this is going to be a really big test for Auburn on the outside. I'll be interested to see if Kensley Lador-Faustin is still their number 3 corner. You mentioned that in practice
like it
this week, it still looked like it. But Jay Crawford he hasn't had much of a sample size so far this season, but 2 catches in the last 2 games for 4 yards. Just hasn't been thrown at very much. It's going to be a big test for him. Kayin Lee is a guy that I think has been maybe not as dynamic and impactful as Auburn maybe hoped. He's got NFL potential. This is the kind of game where he can go out and show it. And I think Luther Burden is going to play. He's probable. The reporting was earlier in this week he had a shoulder injury against UMass. So really big test for them. But it's again, Jason, it's these young guys. Caleb Harris at safety. We've talked about it, but it continues to be the youth movement. For that Auburn defense. Wouldn't be surprised if we see, DeMarcus Riddick out there and having another, significant role in the game plan like he has the last couple games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tuesday we got about 40 minutes actually of viewing window at practice, which is unbelievable for this time of year. So we're very grateful to Hugh Freeze and the staff for letting us hang out there and see it. But you looked up and defensively, and some of the first group was Malik Blockton down at defensive tackle, where we've seen him. Marcus Riddick was more of a traditional linebacker spot this week. And then you look out and you go, you got Drake Crawford and Kensley Faustin, Caleb Harris, Sylvester Smith. Kayin Lee is just a true sophomore. And then you look at, J.C. Hart's probably your 4th guy there. That's a lot of young players on the defense to go get ready to face a team like this. And that's why I think it comes back to, we saw it a little bit in – honestly, the first scrimmage we saw, Nathan, we saw Auburn being really aggressive defensively. Now, different feel because you no longer have, Champ Anthony. Keontae Scott is not a guy that's outside at corner. So you're very young and inexperienced. You don't want to put those guys on an island all day long. But I wonder if we see a little bit more aggressive Auburn defense, because right now they've been playing, hey, we're going to let it get to the red zone, try to stop you, do those things. Georgia scored in those red zone opportunities. But you're not going to create a ton of turnovers when you're not really aggressive. And so I wonder now if you go, hey, look, let's go back to being more aggressive, see if you can create some opportunities, turnover opportunities for your team, and then maybe don't leave your corners out there in an island and having to cover for 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah, on the offensive side of things, still going to be Peyton Thorne. I think Hugh Freeze was adamant about that in the bye week. Not really much that would have warranted a change there. Jason, me and Philip talked about this on his show on Thursday, but that 4th and 1 situation against Georgia continued to be talked about this week. I think it is, Peyton Thorne has been a guy that's had some crucial mistakes at times this season. There's no doubt about that, but he is probably patient zero when it comes to, if you were to execute a few plays better, if you were to eliminate some of those unforced errors, I think he would be allowed to flourish in more of a productive way, because we've seen this offense. And so, this Missouri defense is okay. Like you said, they've had some moments, but on the whole, I think have been more average than great so far this season. I wonder how much, looking at the offensive side, it's really interesting to see, for me, what the self-scouting will look like after the bye week, whether that's Jarquez Hunter, whether it's, do you get Cam Coleman in space more often? I'm just really interested to see what this game plan will look like, whether it is just strict RPO. I kind of got the sense from Hugh Freeze this week that maybe he's a little more open to some brute force play calling, handing Jarquez Hunter the ball. We know they're going to remain in this system, but this is a big game for them in terms of a game planning perspective and creating a good script at Missouri, because if you can, you think if you can keep the turnovers to a minimum in this game, you think you'll have an opportunity to hang around in it. Yeah,
absolutely. The stat right there is one that I don't know that many people would believe, but it is true that Auburn is top 10 team in the country in yards per play this season. Now that means you obviously missed a lot of opportunities because you turned it over early, and it took away a lot of possessions. But when this team has held on to the football, they have moved the football and they have created explosive plays, and they have done it through the air and on the ground. That's the thing. Auburn is 18 spots better nationally in passing in terms of yards per play than they are rushing, and you're top 30 in both of them. So there are things you have done well. The dilemma, as I asked you, Freeze, is, I think it was last week or the week before, but the dilemma is Peyton Thorne is a lot of the reason why you've been successful, because of his decision-making at the line of scrimmage. So you don't want to take away everything, but you also need to have opportunities where you say, look, it's 3rd and 1. We've been running it. Let's just run the football right here. And if you don't get it, then you give yourself a chance. Jarquez does not have many lost yards this year. He's been pretty. So I think there are situations where you go, look, I don't care. Give you 2 plays. It's either left or right. We're going to run it. You either go left or right. And, I think, Hugh Freeze talked about it. And there has been some miscommunication, not only during that play, but since that time, about what happened. But I don't think there's any question that, hey, it was a play they probably hadn't repped as much, but I don't think it was executed the way it was supposed to be, no matter what, because you're moving guys around when all you have to do is run the original play. And so I do think it was a little bit of on both sides, and that's probably what it was. But in the end, call a timeout, make sure you're running the play you want to run, and get it done. And so I do think we'll see maybe situationally more, hey, here's what we're doing. Let's do this. If it looks like it's terrible, call a timeout and get out of it, and then we'll figure out another play.
Yeah, and I just think, I think Hugh Freeze was a little bit surprised, to learn about how effective, to see how effective Jarquez Hunter has been, and maybe how much they have not been able to use him at times this season. Like you mentioned, this is, look, they're going to run this offense. It's Hugh Freeze's offense. And it's not like, 13 carries a game. You don't want him to carry it 20 times a game. But I just think, maybe a slight uptick in that in the second half of the year. These wide receivers as well, Jason. I mentioned Cam Coleman. I'm interested to see what they learned from extensive time on film. Like Hugh Freeze said Monday, I asked him, what tangible things are there when you have that bye week that can help you from an execution standpoint. He said, man, it's just time. It's just time to rewatch and rewatch it again and rewatch it again and have those conversations. He said, they already had the Missouri game plan, most of it in by Monday, because they did that during the bye week. And so I wonder if some of what they saw, from their evaluation, look, it's easier said than done. Get your best player the ball. That's what people talk about, or you're one of your most talented players the ball. It's much easier said than done, but opportunities for guys like Cam Coleman. Malcolm Simmons is a guy who has shown he is absolutely explosive. He talked about it this week, sort of wanting to atone for that drop touchdown against Georgia. Said that wasn't going to happen the rest of the season. And so when it comes to the passing game in particular, interested to see, Keandre Lambert-Smith, you don't have to have any conversations there. I don't think whatever you've been doing has been working. But those couple freshman receivers, we mentioned the young guys on the defensive side of the ball. I'm interested to see how those guys not only get involved in this game, but moving forward into the last 6 games of the regular season.
Yeah, I think you look at the word for me is evolution. How do you evolve as a true freshman now that you've had 6 games? Now you've got a bye week. I think for a guy like Cam Coleman, the evolution becomes, can you play more than on the left side of the offense? Hugh Freeze talked about it in Athens. You got to be able to line up somewhere else, because now teams know we know where 8's going to be. He's going to be on the left side. We can figure out everything else after that. Can you move him around? Can you use him in some motion? We've seen that with Malcolm Simmons a little bit. Can you do some of those things with Cam Coleman? Can you put him in the slot? That's, to me, is the evolution of the young guys, to be able to help determine an advantage for you in coverage versus playing into the hands of the defense. And so I think that's the next step for those guys. Keandre Lambert-Smith's a guy that because he's older, he understands a lot better on the fly what to do based on the coverages. Young guys, it's still a challenge because you don't have to do that as much in high school. We did see Perry Thompson a little bit more with the first group in practice on Tuesday, kind of mixing in some. I think we'll see a little bit more of him moving forward because, to be quite honest, like Robert Lewis is still going to be a guy, but he's not been nearly as involved as we thought he would be. The same for Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson hasn't really been involved at all. And so you start to look at it and going, okay, maybe shifting gears a little bit and getting Perry Thompson a little bit more involved. I think Rivaldo Fairweather is still a guy that's going to have some big play potential in this offense, especially if you start to run it a little more and using him maybe as an H-back kind of role, kind of do some different things. So that's the thing. There's still a lot left in this offense to move forward. But now it's how does it evolve after a bye week?
Give me your keys to this one, Jason. It'll be, like you said, it'll be an early game, an opportunity, I think, for Auburn to get off on the right foot. We always say that fast starts are important, but it just feels like it for this team. Give me your keys on both sides of the ball for Auburn to have an opportunity, not only to hang around in this game, but I know, some folks at our site, you included, think that they have a really good chance to win this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said it coming out of Athens. I don't think there's a team left on the schedule that this Auburn team can't beat, but you have to go execute. Can you do that Saturday? And I do think a quick start would be very beneficial for this team, just to kind of get some confidence going and to feel good about yourself and to come out going, okay, see, here we are. We're right back in that situation again. So I do think that's important. Running the football, and maybe not necessarily running the football, but I think holding the football and having some drives, if nothing else, to let your defense not be on the field a lot and to not have to go back out there over and over again. So I think maintaining drives, and that starts on first down. Got to be successful on first down opportunities. And it's really strange right now that this team has struggled on first downs throwing the football, and normally that's not the case. But a lot of their sack yardage have come on first and 10s after a first down, when you're like, okay, we're going to take a shot here, play action, got a first down, and teams have caught them in run blitzes or whatever it is. But they've really struggled in those situations. So maybe you're saying, hey, look, we're not gonna take our shots on first down. Take some high percentage throws, give yourself second fives, and then maybe you start to give yourself some options. So offensively, can you execute on first down? Defensively, you got to be able to stop the run. There's no question about that. You got to be able to give them second, third and longs, and then be able to dial up some pressure. Because if you don't pressure Brady Cook, then it's going to be really, really tough to slow down those two guys outside.
He has been one of those guys that is sort of a prototypical, progression quarterback, good receiver. He is not going to, I think, be as dynamic this season just on his own, but he is going to be one of those guys. Auburn fans have been frustrated in recent seasons where a guy just gets too much time and they go out there and look like Peyton Manning. He has the opportunity to do that. He is a guy who has the talent and the receivers in the system to do that. So yeah, that's why I come back to that defensive front, like you said, stopping the run too, because I think Missouri's plan to replace Cody Schrader has been pretty decent, and I liked the idea of just bringing in a couple really experienced transfer guys. You mentioned Nate Noel, he's the guy who's popped for them occasionally this season. Jason, before we move on to talking about the rest of the games in college football this year, like we always do, there was a lot of Auburn basketball flavor this week. SEC Media Day was in Birmingham. Jason, the top two teams in the league, as picked by the SEC Media Poll. You can also tell it's a remote show because my dogs have decided.
There you go. Hang out.
Auburn, Alabama picked 1 and 2, which, as Philip talked about yesterday, you would have never imagined that happened, but it's sort of a microcosm of the rise of those two programs and the rise of basketball in the state of Alabama over the last 6 or 7 years, and the hire of Bruce Pearl definitely played a big factor in that, really, across the SEC.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about coaching and coaching and the investment in basketball in this league. For a long time, the investment in basketball in this league was Arkansas and Kentucky. That was it. Nobody else really invested in basketball. Florida won at times, and then but again, Billy Donovan, you get a coach like that, and it changes the direction of a program. But now everybody's investing in everything in this league because of the money involved. Baseball, football's always kind of had an investment, but even that, Kentucky wasn't invested in football, and South Carolina wasn't really invested in football. Now you look and everybody's invested, and it makes a difference. And for basketball, for Auburn, you invest in Bruce Pearl, and you go, look, we're going to go get an elite coach and see what happens. And you see what happens. Alabama goes and gets an elite coach in Nate Oates, and you see what happens. And now you look at the coaches in this league and everything that's going on. But it shows you the importance of people that have vision. And Bruce Pearl had a vision. He'd already been to a place very similar at Tennessee and won. And he comes to Auburn and says, look, we're going to get people involved. We're going to get people invested, get people in the stands. And then you win a little bit, and then it builds. And then all of a sudden you start recruiting, and now you're recruiting at a high level. But a really interesting season ahead and an interesting team, because I think this team has a lot of potential, but also think there's some holes. How do you fill those holes at the guard positions? Because it's, other than Denver Jones, you've kind of rotated this group out, and you go like, hey, here it is. It's a pretty new group that you have to work with. Jalen Williams, I really think people are underselling how valuable that guy was last year for that Auburn team and how tough it's going to be to replace him. Can Chaney Johnson, Turtle, those guys, can they handle the four? If not, how much do you have to play room at the four and him and Dylan Cardwell at the same time? A lot of questions for this Auburn team going into easily the toughest schedule any Auburn basketball team's ever faced.
Yeah, and it's not just because of the non-conference. Auburn talked about that a lot on Tuesday. The players said that they felt like it was a mark of Bruce Pearl being confident in this roster, which it certainly is. But Bruce has also talked about the fact that, and we're mentioning Alabama, that Alabama has played really good non-conference schedules and teams like them. And a lot of the times you're not really punished for losing those kinds of games. And so I think Bruce saw I know he talked about it, saw the effects of what it had on Auburn's NCAA tournament resume last year, kind of having a so-so non-conference schedule. But the big thing, Jason, is going to be how do they, and Bruce Pearl talked about it, they're going to lose some games.
Correct.
And they might not just lose a handful of games. They might lose several games,
Mhm.
even just at the beginning of the SEC play. And Bruce talked about it this week. How do they respond? Do they pay attention to what happened against a national contender and adjust and improved? Or did they, kind of get down on themselves by having, losses? Do they let that affect them? How they respond to that, not only in non-conference play, but as you mentioned, SEC play, especially on the road. Goodness, everybody you play is going to be, almost everyone you play on the road is going to be thinking they're an NCAA tournament team. You were going to take your lumps this year, especially with a roster that, like you said, needs to develop at a couple spots. How they respond over the course of the season is going to determine whether they can, atone for a sudden exit in the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah, no, you look at it and Alabama gives you a roadmap. When you look at their season last year, Alabama team, they lost to Wake Forest, went on the road and played Wake Forest, lost to Wake Forest, lost to Ohio State in Florida, lost to Clemson at home in Tuscaloosa, lost to Purdue in Toronto, lost to Creighton in Omaha, lost to Arizona in Phoenix. So you start looking at all those games, and you go, man, that's a lot of losses. But when the time came, that team had seen everything that they could possibly see. I think the Auburn team's going to be very similar. You look up and you go, people were making kind of jokes about Alabama last year. That team's not very good. Well, when the time came, they were pretty good because they were extremely tested. This Auburn team's going to be the same thing. Alabama lost 12 games last year, made it to the Final Four. So they were an 11-loss team going into the NCAA tournament. Could Auburn be a similar type team? They could be. Absolutely. You could have that many losses and be a fringe top 25 team and absolutely be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country by the time the dust settles. And so if you go out and start winning some of these early, then look out, because then you're going, okay, you're facing some really talented teams. So I do think that there'll be some losses down the road, but I think it's going to make this team much better by the time they get to SEC play.
Yeah, and there were 9 teams in the AP top 25 preseason from the SEC. Like, it's crazy to think about. One of those teams is going to finish technically in the bottom half of the league, and they're
maybe more than one of them,
probably more, and they're going to be tournament teams. I talked about it with Philip yesterday. Like, this is going to be a classic, a modern classic Big 12 feeling season.
Correct.
in the SEC, where you go out every night and every Wednesday and every Saturday. It is just two teams.
There's not a layup where you go,
Exactly.
We don't have to play very good tonight, we can go win this game. There's not one of those in this league.
Exactly, especially on the road, and especially with the target that Auburn has developed on its back. It's going to be big on the road in the SEC this year, but Auburn especially. People storm the court against Auburn now. They have developed that type of rapport as a team in the conference, and so. But yeah, really looking forward to the SC basketball season. Of course, we're recording this, while tip-off at Toomers is happening. Auburn will have an opportunity to showcase some of its talent there. Janai Broome, first team All SEC. No surprise there. He'll probably be a preseason first team All American. I personally voted him preseason player of the year in the SEC. Mark Sears wins that. Kind of a toss-up between those two. I kind of think Broome maybe is a little bit more of an overall valuable player that opens up a lot of things, but you can make an argument either way.
Yeah, the difference between most outstanding and most valuable is always the kind of catch-all. There's no question that Janai Broome is the most valuable player in this league, and maybe the most valuable player in the country, because he is that important to this Auburn team.
Yeah, and as Broome talked about this week, interesting to kind of hear his thoughts on things. He said that he's pretty much done the individual stuff, and you don't hear that from a player very often. But he was like, "Yeah, last year was great individually for me." He said, "Now it's about going out and winning the championship and avenging that loss." He said the final score of the Yale game is plastered on the wall in their weight room in the practice facility. So that one's going to, we knew that one would sting for a while. They're going to continue to remind themselves about it going into the season. Jason, as we do every week, in the final few minutes here, touch on games across the country. The game of the week is obviously in Austin, Texas. By the way, they have an F1 race in downtown Austin on Sunday.
Yeah,
so that is going to be an insane trip. Our friends over there at Dogs 24/7, hopefully they have a safe trip over there. But this is, I think most people would agree Texas has been really good, and I don't. Their number one ranking is fine, but they have not been tested like this. My question is is this the part of the season? We always see it under Kirby Smart every year. Is this the part of the season where he has shifted into where he can turn things up a notch for Georgia? If it's not, they haven't been playing consistent enough to win this game.
Yeah.
But if it is, we know they have that other gear to be able to go out and beat anybody in the country.
Yeah, and we don't say this very often, but I'm not certain Georgia's good enough defensively unless they can run the football. And they haven't run the football enough. They have decided we're going to try to outscore people. I don't think you're going to outscore Texas in Austin. You got to be able to protect your defense. So no Smell Munden for Georgia on defense. I honestly believe they've got to go in there and try to run the football, shorten the game a little bit. Not all the way old school Georgia football, but they got to come back from, 45 passes, 400 yards, and to give you a little bit more balance on offense. I still don't know that it's enough. I don't think, again, Texas hasn't been tested. Their defense has put up these huge numbers, but again, they haven't played anybody that's a great offense to this point. So I think Georgia's going to score. I think Texas scores a little bit more at home.
Yeah, and it's going to be, potentially a preview of what we'll see in Atlanta between these two teams. But at the same time, Jason, I mean, in the rest of the SEC race, people just keep on winning. I mean, LSU pulls out that win last week. They're still undefeated in the league. They have to go to Arkansas. I think that's a sneaky, tricky game, especially coming off of a big spot.
Yeah, Arkansas coming off a bye week, I believe.
Yep, they are.
And, Taylor Green getting healthier.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting game. It is because and then LSU has not been lights out either, and so but they have found ways to win.
Probably the second best game nationally, though, is Alabama at Tennessee. You and I both went with Alabama in our forecasters. I just sort of think that this is, and I'm not saying Alabama hasn't been motivated to play. This could be a wake-up call of sorts for them. I just see, first of all, I regretted not picking Alabama a few weeks ago when they played Georgia because I just sort of thought they would get up for that game at home. Big rivalry spot. You've been playing inconsistent if you're Alabama. Going in there, and I think they can take advantage of some of the things Tennessee has been lacking. But at the same time, Jason, I mean, we've seen Jalen Milroe and this offense get a little clunky at times. Can't do that. I mean, Tennessee is a monster on defense, or at least they're capable of being. You cannot do that in Knoxville. And Tennessee's got the potential. They've got the players on both sides of the ball to win this game. I just think Alabama maybe will come out and be maybe clicking on a little bit more cylinders to go out and win a big game.
Yeah, I went with Alabama strictly because quarterback. Jalen Milroe and Nico has been playing pretty terrible the last 3 weeks in SEC play. Has not been very good. But this Alabama defense has shown that they can make another offense look pretty good to this point. Which one of those wins out? I still go with quarterback a little bit here. I'm not a big believer in either team, to be quite honest. I don't think it's the same thing for me. Talk about Georgia, not as talented defensively. Alabama's not as talented defensively as they have been. They're not as deep, playing some younger guys in the secondary. There's going to be opportunities for this Tennessee team, but I don't know. I trust Alabama's older, experienced quarterback a little bit more in this setting, but I think it's going to be really close.
Outside of the SEC, number 6 Miami goes to Louisville. Be a good test for them. Indiana playing a really big home game as the number 16 team in the country against Nebraska. Notre Dame's got to play Georgia Tech on the road. Ranked versus ranked, Michigan at Illinois. It's going to be a good game. And then on the G5 level, after Georgia Southern's big comeback win, I believe they're 5-2 on the season, something to that effect. They got to play James Madison, who's obviously been a really good team. And so, Jason, I think that'll just about do it for us. Talk a little bit as we do at the end of the show every Thursday about our great sponsor, AU Club, and what folks can get from going there and checking things out. Of course, we always love being there in person. Weren't able to do it this week because Tip-Off Tumors is happening right now, but we'll be excited to get back into our spot next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. Auburn University Club is, first of all, if you're a golfer and, moving in the Auburn area, live in the Auburn area, go check it out because the course is in fantastic shape. They'll be hosting an NCAA regional again this coming spring. So they'll be getting that thing prepared. It's going to be top notch as it always is. And so the crew out there does a great job, but fantastic restaurant. Food is incredible. I mean, it's as good a food as there is anywhere in this city.
Yes.
So then we got a legit chef. I mean, this is a top-notch facility. But you have fitness center right there on the grounds. That's part of it to go along with it, and practice range, all those things that you got going on. Pool area right down the street from the clubhouse. So everything you need in a country club, but this is a golf course country club that is centered around one of the best golf courses in anywhere in this area and in the state. So go check them out, and they'll take care of you for sure.
Yeah, and if you're in town for a home game Thursday night, I imagine Friday nights are happening too, but Thursday nights have been great. We'll sort of bring in the dinner rush at about 6 o'clock and do our live show there, and then live music as well. There's always somebody setting up.
Yeah,
always somebody setting up beside us as we're getting ready, and then they'll start up the live music. So great place to go if you're in town for the game, or obviously if you live here, like Jason said, into golfing, want some good food, go check it out. So that'll do it for Thursday Night Live this week. Auburn heads to number 19 Missouri on Saturday, coming out of the Orange and Blue Tigers bye week, heading to Columbia. Me and Jason will be there. We have got quite the travel day tomorrow to Kansas City.
Start.
That'll be say some good luck for us on Friday. But we'll be excited to bring you guys coverage at auburnundercover.com. And until then, we will catch you guys later.